Certainly we are all trying to be sensitive in covering this particular recovery effort, because we know that remains have continued to be pulled from the Hudson River today. Laura, can you tell us anything else from your vantage point? We have a pretty good view. I'm not sure how good it is for you.
Yeah, I can't see what you're seeing, but I can tell you what I'm seeing from the shore, and that is these boats going in. And what I'm keeping my eye on, Shannon, is that small rubber raft with the divers still on it, because I have been told from earlier today that once the helicopter has been pulled out, which it has, or at least most of it has, that boat will go back and the divers will go back into the water where those orange neon balloons have been marking where the wreckage point was. It's my understanding that the helicopter was possibly on top of one of the victims on the bottom of the river. So what they did was they went in, and if you can only imagine what these divers have been through, we've all trying to find a light switch in the dark, right? Well, these divers are down there in 30 feet plus of water in the pitch black with a current racing past their face, feeling around with their hands, trying to feel inside of the helicopter, find those victims, cut them out of their seatbelts, feel around on the bottom of the Hudson River for more victims. And that is what I've been told they found, was another victim underneath the helicopter. Once they got that wreckage up, they need to go back down and feel around again. There are, as we know, more victims down there. All we have seen today are 2 bodies removed from this scene. So that brings the total number to 5. It is not official. We need to make that clear. We have not received official confirmation that the total number of victims brought to the surface is 5. But from our vantage point, that is what we have seen. So we are now waiting for the NTSB to come and tell us exactly what they have obtained from underneath the water. And when we do get that, we of course will share it with you and hopefully get the next leg of this investigation and this very tedious recovery operation.
And Laura, like we talked about earlier, they had talked about limiting this search, or at least when the best hours and best conditions would be. We understand those have passed, but it seems like they've made significant progress today. I cannot imagine the kinds of men and women who take on these positions as divers and go through the conditions that you have just described. I mean, I would imagine at this point they have to be satisfied at least that they've made some significant progress here. From the looks of this large piece that's coming out of the water now, we've got a couple of different viewpoints for our viewers able to see what's coming up, but again, the divers did reach out from the raft and throw some type of tarp or sheet over a portion of what's coming out of the water now, of course leading us to wonder whether there are possible remains of one of the 9 victims here. We know some of them in these 2 planes were Italian tourists. We also had family and family members that were together flying from Pennsylvania, or at least based there. 3 teenagers we also have reported were involved in these 9 deaths that all are presumed dead from this crash. We continue to see this large piece being pulled now, hoisted out of the water. It must be the most significant piece. Is this the largest that you've seen so far today, Laura?
Oh, absolutely. You know, when this operation began at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Shannon, we saw them come out with a piece of debris. That was the first relative piece of evidence that we saw brought out of the water today. And then we saw what appeared to be the first body or part of a body, and then we had a second one. We knew that they had always had the helicopter since last night. They knew where it was. So this is certainly the largest part of the wreckage that we have seen. And as you mentioned, the other aircraft still needs to be found. We are waiting for word if they can find it. They thought that they had a hit on it. Look, there are cars, there's car doors, there's parts of boats down there. There's all kinds of things at the bottom of the Hudson. So when they get a hit that they have metal down at the bottom, they need to go back in and take those cameras down there, go down there and feel around and see exactly what they're dealing with. So I got to tell you, we thought we were going to have pouring rain by this point. There was talk of thunderstorms. The weather is humid and it's hot and it's sticky, but at least the rain has stopped. They could always work through rain. It was the fear of lightning. So the weather is good. The current right now is settled down. It's the next few hours. The 8 to 10 a.m. window that we had talked about earlier from our river expert was really the best window of time that they had. And boy, these divers, our hats are off to them, because they went right in at 8:01. They got their work done. They secured as much as they could underwater, and they've just been going nonstop ever since. Now that it's past 1 o'clock, when the current is going to change yet again, they they do have some significant challenges ahead of them, but they know what they're up against. They have all the experts here to help guide them from what's coming and what is predicted as far as the tide and the weather conditions. So we're hoping that they'll be able to come up with even more stuff before sun goes down.
I mean, this looks like it could be, I'm certainly no aviation expert, but this looks like the main primary portion of the helicopter that they've done such a good job in locating. And Laura, as you're reporting and we're watching this coming out of the water, I notice a number of boats and water taxis and things going by. I mean, is normal traffic still operating there on the Hudson at this point?
Well, apparently so. I mean, it's been relatively quiet since last night, but this morning, you're right, we saw a sailboat go by earlier, and I can see that water taxi that you can see as well, the white and blue one. So it apparently has been opened up.
And Laura, is it your understanding that you talked about the 1 o'clock potential cutoff? Do you think they'll go beyond this point? Any indication that since they've had success, maybe they'll continue on, or maybe just go as long as the conditions hold off? Any indication there?
Absolutely. Yeah, you got it. They are definitely going to continue on as long as the weather holds, and that rain that was predicted earlier today has subsided. So we've got the humid conditions, but they are absolutely going to keep going. And as I mentioned, they had told us that once the wreckage, once that main part of the helicopter fuselage came out, they were going to go back in. They've got to feel around. Now, I can't see what you're seeing, and maybe you can tell me if you see the helicopter blade or any parts of it on that wreckage. But as we've been talking about the dangerous conditions, you heard the mayor of New York City talk about it yesterday, that they did not want to risk any more lives after what we had seen with these 9 lost yesterday. So when these divers are down there, you're talking about the dark, you're talking about the current and the water temperature, but think about what they're touching. Think about what could come flying at them underwater when that current picks up. Metal, shards of metal and glass and those blades and the propeller. There's all kinds of things down there that are just could be deadly in a second for these divers. So, but they are going to continue. They're going to make the most of these circumstances that they have in front of them. They are going to be underwater as long as the weather holds and until they find all of the victims and all of the wreckage that's possible.
All right, Laura Engel, thank you so much for keeping us up with such detailed information there from Hoboken as we're watching this unfold. We're now joined on the phone by Scott Brenner, who was with the FAA, to tell us a little bit more about this situation and where we go from here. Scott, thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely.
Tell me what you make of this. It looks like they've made significant progress. I don't know if you can see what we're seeing.
I can't, but, that is a very crowded area, both for fixed-wing aircraft and for helicopters. And so when you have that type of traffic, unfortunately, sometimes this is going to happen. But when they're going to pull out, they'll probably be able to pull out major portions of each aircraft because neither of them was flying very high. And hopefully from there you'll probably get a pretty good idea of what actually happened. I mean, there's lots of eyewitness accounts, so you have some pretty good information already. But, we'll still see. I mean, it's awfully early, but right now the early indications seem probably the fixed-wing aircraft just didn't see the helicopter and crashed into him.
And Scott, let me ask you, I understand that these smaller aircraft like this probably would not have had something akin to a black box. Is there anything else that would be a top clue for investigators here? Because, what we're looking at is a very mangled bit of aircraft that's left over, and certainly the experts will be able to piece things together. But without something like a black box or recording device, what will they look to?
They will look at the radar tracks. They will look at to see if there's any kind of air traffic control communication. A lot of times, though, when pilots fly that corridor, they fly because they don't want to get involved with air traffic and they want a little more freedom of flying around to see the sights they want to see. But I think, I think investigators pull out the wreckage, take a look at that, but I think fairly quickly they'll come to a conclusion on this.
And we understand that the air traffic policies in that area have not changed for now. We may learn something a little bit later as the NTSB uncovers things. But it sounds like a situation that is very casual. Pilots have to rely on each other to communicate in this particular corridor. There was obviously some breakdown. Do you expect there would be any immediate change in how flight traffic works there over the Hudson, absent some major discovery at this point?
I think there obviously will be discussion. I mean, community leaders are always trying to make the skies safer, as is the FAA. but also, you know, you really have a pretty successful tourism business there with very few fatalities. So, you know, I think it's worked well, but, you know, we'll have to take a look.
All right, we will continue to monitor the situation. Scott Brenner, with the formerly with the FAA, we thank you so much for your time today. Again, you're looking live at pictures of the Hudson River where recovery efforts continue after a crash that killed 9 people. More after this.